Hello and welcome to an episode of The Goal Difference. We are recording straight after Arsenal 1, Manchester City 1. Scarlet has stumbled out of the ground and into my living room. And we are here to unpack a seismic weekend of Premier League action, the Merseyside derby, Arsenal versus Manchester City, and all the title ramifications and permutations that are arising from that. But Scarlet, first of all, tell me, how was the game today?
I think we snatched that. I think... I don't want to say Arteta got it wrong because I think that's really stoking your fire, but I think it was quite telling that he made those substitutions at half-time. My personal feeling is I don't really mind who's on the pitch. Like, I think Merino is a perfectly capable player. Same with Trossard. I can understand why you'd have Trossard there maybe more than Merino, because I think Trossard, like, you don't really want Martinelli in a chess match from the start. If you've decided that it's not Eze, then I can see why you'd go to Trossard. But then why not play Eze centrally? Is it something about the left foot Merino? Anyway, I think my point about that is just, I don't really think it matters who's on the pitch, but it still matters how you play and how you set up. And I thought Arsenal were really passive in the first half. And it really frustrated me because if you're going to be conservative, seems to be the operative word here. If you're going to be conservative, then don't get done on the counter. But we got done on the counter, and then you think, well, what was the point of all of that? You know, you might as well get done on the counter going for it.
I think the thing is, you're not exuding the arrogance of someone that thinks we're nailed on to win the league here. I think this has been, if I'm to surmise correctly, this has been both a reality check and also a source of hope for you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's probably true. I think my attitude was more embattled post-Anfield because I think in that situation you were lucky to come away with the win, and I could feel the narrative churning post that I felt was inaccurate. But I think in this game, if we'd lost, we actually would have got what we deserved. City did what we do. They shut the game down, and you'll notice I'm not complaining about it. It's really annoying to play against. They stopped whenever they could. They went down whenever they could. It was such an awful match to watch, but they controlled it.
That's what I felt, Scarlett. That's what I felt watching it. I felt a frustration that I often feel when I'm watching Arsenal. I mean, I found City pretty boring to watch, even in the halcyon Guardiola days, because I don't find tiki-taka particularly appealing. But I want to give credit where
slitty slotter,
clippy clopper. I want to give credit where credit was due, and the first 15 minutes, I'd say, of the second half, you know, it was edge of the seat stuff as Arsenal attacked, and I said to a fellow Liverpool fan and friend of the podcast, Mum, at halftime, you know, she was saying, oh, he got it wrong in the selection. I was saying, yes, but football is a 90-minute game, and the beauty is you get the chance to rectify your mistakes. So he didn't hold on to those subs until the 60th minute. He made them. Just to finish my point, the game came to life in that 15-minute period, and then City strangled the game, and it was deeply frustrating. But I've got to hand it to both teams in stoppage time, especially after the Arsenal goal. Both teams went for it, punch for punch. And that, at the end of the day, Scarlett, as a completely biased, non-neutral, but lover of football and lover of great football, that is what you want to see. Good teams going punch for punch.
But I think, you know, take the neutral watching a compelling game of football thing aside, because I don't care if it's, good football really actually is where you start winning and you make it impossible for the other team to get back into it. Something that Liverpool have struggled with, right? You kill the game. City tried to kill it, and if they'd won that game, they would have done it successfully, but they didn't. And it was a lucky goal. But I was just going to say, you know, to your point about the second half, it was huff and puff as far as I'm concerned. The game was happening at the other end of the pitch. I was near the clock end, and so we were attacking the North Bank in the second half. So I couldn't tell whether the chances that it sort of felt like it was a lot of hot air, really. I didn't feel that Donnarumma was pulling off worldy saves. I thought maybe that as a shot, like that looked like it was travelling.
Everything, it won't show on the XG, and this is where the XG helmets and the non-XG people, you know, fall out, is that no, Arsenal didn't create an, oh my God, they have to score moment. But at any point, the ball could have bounced a bit differently off O'Reilly.
Yeah, but do you know who did create an, oh my God, they have to score moment? City. City did us on the break again. So it could have absolutely been rendered completely nothing. And I think that's the biggest question or concern I have about this game. Look, we said it before. We said it before this game. City can hurt you. Haaland can hurt you. And that's how they hurt you. He scored that goal against us at the Etihad last season. So in a way, it doesn't, it's not like an indictment of who we are that they scored one goal and they created a good chance. I'd be interested to see what the XG looks like, because I'm sure it would tell you that probably Arsenal created more. But like, that's also kind of context dependent, isn't it? Because we were losing for a lot of that game.
Okay, so let's just step back a minute from really getting into the thicket of the game itself and your emotions within that. We're going to do a bit of twin tuition. And, I'm going to start by reiterating what I said before, that in terms of the title race, I think this was a bit of a reality check for you, insofar as I think we now have to both concede that City are a competitor in this, whether we like it or not. But I think you come out of it with a fair amount of hope, because the rights and wrongs of Arteta's selection, we could debate those, but ultimately Arsenal, they got the late goal, and Martinelli suddenly looks like a player again. So the narrative would have been different if you'd conceded the late equaliser, but I think you're not despondent. I've seen you walk in after a game despondent, and this is not that. And I've also seen you be agitated and angry after a game and defiant. You're not that either. I think that's what's interesting about this, is it's okay, this is the challenge. This is what we have to do. I think you're sort of looking at the challenge of the title race now. You've sized it up. You've played both your rivals, and you now know what it's going to take.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to take big games slightly out of the context of the rest of the season, I think. And I think even if we'd lost this game, it would have been too early to say. I mean, you would have called Liverpool favourites for the title, but I think it would have been too early to say, that's it, nailed on, or like Arsenal are rubbish. Like, clearly they're not. They tend to be competitive in big matches, and I think Arteta's now got the best record of anyone against Guardiola, because he's unbeaten in 5. But my point is, I think big games can be close and teams can still be separate. City are in 9th place right now. They're in 9th place for a reason, and we weren't able to do to them what I think the team suggested that we might have been trying to do, which was to bully them. I think that's why Mourinho was there. It's what Tottenham did, but Tottenham kept the ball out of the net. City threatened. They had a big chance, I think, early in the game against Spurs. So I think the goal changed everything, but 2 very different matches really against rivals, probably both marked by conservatism on both sides.
But am I right in thinking that your kind of groundedness is like, it's happened now? You've got 2, results. You wouldn't have dreamed of those 2 results, but it's happened now. It's out of the way. And it's almost like, put that to one side and get on with the season.
Yeah, totally. I mean, apart from the fact that we've got to go to St James's Park next weekend, which is a whole difficult. But if we take 4 points from those 2 games, you've got to think that leaves us in quite a strong position.
Yeah.
I think the loss to you then becomes an anomaly rather than are Arsenal doing this wrong?
Well, I think, look, again, without wanting to be seen as rage baiting to our audience, this is meant with the utmost respect. I think every team at this stage in the season are telling themselves a story about their form. Every team. So Liverpool are telling themselves a story of just wait till we click. That's the story we're telling ourselves, albeit with the 5 wins under our belt. And Arsenal are telling themselves a story of, look, people have barely laid a glove on us. What happened at Anfield was a freak. The Szoboszlai goal was 2 in 100, by the way, not 1 in 100. So you had a 2% chance.
It was 2 in 100.
My statistical boffins at Fitzstairs HQ tell me. Anyway,
let's look that one up later.
Yeah, you should. But the point is, everyone has a narrative. And I don't think today's game necessarily breaks your narrative. I don't quite take your point that if you'd lost, it wouldn't, because I don't think you can tell yourself what you've been saying about the Gyökeres flat track bully, the greater arsenal of attacking weapons, if you had lost that game 1-0.
But I think what I was trying to tell you is that I think big games are different and you can lose them. Like City could have lost that game today. If they created 2 huge chances and nothing else. So if they didn't take their chances and we got
Personally speaking, were you taking City seriously as a title challenger until today?
I still don't in the same way. I think they were better. They were better than they were last season. And I don't think it's necessarily a case of, City were there for the taking and we didn't take them. But I don't see this City bulldozing. I mean, like, it would have been unthinkable to get a late equaliser against City even 2 seasons ago. They would have shut it out. And I think even really the fact that they resorted so quickly to slowing the game down and disrupting and frustrating and shutting things down told me that they didn't think that they were potentially feeling quite happy with where things were at 1-0, which is also not very City-like either. Sorry, Lola, I could talk about that forever. But now I will chew it to you.
Please do.
So I'm just going to dust off my trusty scanner after its trip to the Emirates.
Did you manage to get it through stadium security?
It was just beep, beep, beeping away. Anyway, scanning you, I think you're cock-a-hoop because, you know, there's a 5-point chasm between you and the rest of the pack. So I think you're sitting pretty, again, telling yourself the story that you've not yet played your best football. And it couldn't really have broken better for you because I think, you know, depending on how seriously you're taking City, points dropped by 2 of your rivals this weekend. You took maximum points in a potential banana skin. I think you've got to feel good. Look, you've won 5 games in a row. That's a hard thing to do.
We didn't do it in the whole of last season.
And, you know, credit where credit's due. I think in that game I actually didn't watch it. I was building IKEA furniture. But it sounds like your attack was really gelling, interestingly, without Wirtz or Isak. Obviously, he has gone 006 now. Will he go 007?
I doubt it because I think he's going to play against Southampton on Tuesday night.
In the League Cup?
Yeah.
Stat padding. Anyway, I think you've got to feel good about it. I think the truth is, what you would have liked, you know, if City had one, is to tell yourself that Arsenal were going to go away and that City weren't a real threat. But I think probably that's both suggested to you that they might be. So I think in a way, like, you're happy for now, but the storm is not gone. You're still going to be chased, I think, most of the way. So let's see what happens, really.
I think the reality is, Scarlet, that, and I've been mulling this thought over in my head since late last night. I thought it just before we turned on Match of the Day. So stay with me on this. This Liverpool team is like a diamond, okay? Diamonds are formed under pressure. We've had 5 intensely pressurizing games so far this season. You can make it 7 if you throw in the Community Shield, which was a really tough game against Palace, and the game at home against Atletico. And with every game, for lots of different reasons, because of all the context around the games that we've played, be that first home game of the season since losing Diogo Jota, be that second game of the season against Newcastle in the midst of the Isak saga, be that playing against the team that came second last season at home, Zargim season. There's a multitude of contexts around all of the games that we've played. In each of those games, you have seen a new face to this Liverpool side. Now, you might only have seen it for 10-minute spells, be that the Wirtz link-up with Isak against Atletico Madrid or the increased defensive resoluteness against Arsenal. The point is, I think Liverpool are showing lots of different faces. They are by no means the finished article at this stage. But what's interesting, and I've never seen this before because I've never seen us try to do this, I've never seen a rebuild as ambitious as what we were forced in some ways to attempt this summer. But what's interesting is the pressure is pulling together that shape, pulling together that gem faster almost than if you just, had a longer period without, if you just had the summer to do whatever you wanted. So where I'm at right now is of course I'm buzzing 5 games in a row. Who wouldn't be winning the derby? Who wouldn't be? But what I feel is we've all only seen glimpses. I've only seen glimpses, but what I've seen is not one team, but a multitude of different teams that can survive different contexts in different moments. So that's what really excites me.
Yeah, and I think, that's why it was important that Arsenal got the late goal today, because we needed to do it when the pressure was on. We needed to find a way. And Jamie Carragher said something slightly frustrating, which was, I don't think Arsenal look like scoring, which is ridiculous because I think we've got the best goal difference in the league. And I'm pretty sure we've outscored you
I don't know.
That's true. Well, let's check it. Let's check.
But no, we can just do the maths. 4 against Bournemouth, 3 against Newcastle, so that's 7. 1 against you, back off the international break, 1 against Burnley, 9. And then 2 against Everton, 11.
Okay, so 1 against United, 5 against Leeds, 6. None against you. 3 against Forest, 8.
No, 6 plus 3 is 9.
9. Plus 1. 10. 11.
No, it's 10. It's 10.
Okay. All right. You're gonna have
No,
to... I actually, my point was really about goal difference anyway. I think if I'm to point to one thing about how Liverpool have played that I think is now not just the product of a few crazy happenings, the one thing from the other side of the fence that gives me hope, take out the performance today from Arsenal, is, and it's sort of what City were attempting to do. They were attempting to kill the game, but Liverpool haven't killed any game this season. So every game has been sprint to the finish, all guns blazing, desperation at the end, apart from Everton, but it was desperate in another way because you're trying to keep the ball out of your net. And I do think, like, yes, we should fear for when your attack clicks into gear, because it's pretty obvious Wirtz has not clicked yet. I mean, whatever you say, no.
Well, I mean, I thought he was excellent against Atletico, and your manager counts the Community Shield, so I think you've got to. But you're right. He's not hit top gear yet. That's fair. But I equally, I would hope that you're a seasoned enough football watcher to see that it's a toenail away.
Well, I think that's the thing with Wirtz. Like, by all accounts, when him and Isak came on yesterday, you looked worse. Not that I think they'll always be worse. I think Isak is clearly a top.
I just think it didn't work. It didn't work making Wirtz the outball.
But I just think, for 100 odd million, it needs to really work whatever you do. Like, that's the thing. Declan Rice, our 100 million player, very, very rarely, if ever, drops below a 7, and usually makes meaningful. I mean, he wasn't great today.
The manager made a really good point, actually, about Isak, about where his fitness was at. And he was like a 26-year-old coming from the Premier League into another Premier League side, even without a pre-season, is that much fitter than a 22-year-old coming from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. Like, this is a whole different level. So I don't want to make excuses for him. He needs to start,
What do you mean, different level? You mean he is fit?
No, that Isak is fitter.
Yeah, so if he's fit, then why would...
Because what I'm saying is about Wirtz is that it's just taking time to adapt. Anyway, look, we've got to move on. Talked about Arsenal's performance. We've talked about how you're feeling. Talked a little bit about how you're feeling about Liverpool. Just to round up here, what's something you think that going into this football weekend, what's something you were wrong about?
That's an interesting question. I think I was experiencing a growing doubt about my previous conviction that Jeremy Doku didn't really have end product, because I mean, he, again, in the Manchester derby, he was brilliant, but it's really hard to tell when teams play United. Are they good because it's United? And then he played really well against 10 men. So I was kind of hoping, I'm sure he is obviously a good player, but I just thought, that's a marked step down from the kind of level that they were at 3 years ago with the attackers they had. I'm now not thinking of a single person, but
Mahrez,
I'd
Sane, Sterling in his palm.
Yeah, I think Doku feels like he's in the same conversation as those players, but his output, take Grealish out of it because he did fail at City output wise. To me, he just, and this is pure eye test stuff. I actually don't know about Doku's numbers, but I've always felt like, he'll beat a man and then he'll lose the ball. Today, he was unplayable. He did whatever he wanted against the Arsenal defence, who are totally capable. Timber lost his battle. Timber never loses. The only other time I've seen Timber struggle is against Kvaratskhelia.
I mean, just to throw something in about Doku, and it's only something that's become relevant for me watching Rio Ngamoa, and Rio Ngamoa is not yet near Jeremy Doku's level, but I hope that he will become a better player. What's interesting about Rio Ngamoa is even now, even as a 17-year-old, his quick feet and ability to dribble make him, in some situations, you can't get the ball off him. And what that does, even without goals and assists, is it creates space for others because you're pushing the opposition fullback back into an area they don't want to be. And I think that is, you know, with Doku, actually, we saw that loads today, was he was getting the ball up the pitch and he was creating space for others. I don't think he ended up with an assist today.
Yeah, but he would have had one if Haaland had scored that second chance.
Yeah.
He did really well there. Shook off a challenge and then found the perfect pass.
Yeah.
Why Haaland was in so much space, I don't know.
Well, maybe it was because of Doku.
Yeah. So Lola, what were you wrong about this weekend?
Well, what I was wrong about was number 33 for Man City, Nico O'Reilly. When the team sheets dropped, I saw Kusanov and O'Reilly in the fullback positions and thought, this is the microcosm of where the City team have fallen in quality. I was just thinking, like, these guys are just not as good as whatever came before them.
I mean, when they were great, I think they still had Zinchenko. They got rid of him, but they had
like Cancelo in full flow. He played left back, actually, even though he's right-footed.
Yeah.
Kyle Walker, like, you know, they would just drop 50 million on a new fullback every summer and they would slot right in and look brilliant. So I was just thinking, like, this attacking midfielder that you've plucked out of your academy and dropped in, was he at left back or right back?
He was at left back.
Dropped in at left back. I was just like, for me, Pep's whole thing about turning midfielders into fullbacks, it makes me uncomfortable because I'm just like, look at Mateus Nunes, he's built his career on being a midfielder and then suddenly you just decide he's a fullback. People might accuse me of hypocrisy with Dom Szoboszlai, but like, I don't want to see Dom Szoboszlai playing right back for Liverpool that much unless the situation demands it. So the point is, I looked at those fullback areas and was like, this is the epitome of where this City team have declined and consequently, you know, haven't been taking them seriously because, as I said on the previous episode, back to front, I look at their team and think they are not as strong as they used to be. But Nico O'Reilly was tremendous. He defended Madueke better than I've seen anyone so far this season.
I thought Madueke was the brightest spark of the first half.
Yeah, he was. But there was moments when O'Reilly, just with his body position, would do something really smart that meant he came out with the ball. And then second half, he dealt with Saka well. So I was super impressed by him and I wasn't expecting to be. And I was possibly wrong about him.
One thing I would say about the City defenders, and they did defend well, is that there is an element of this game where, like, the first break went to City, as in, like, I'm talking about pool breaks. Like, obviously they scored on the break. But if you shook everything around and they got the chance that they wanted and they took it, and I don't think you can emphasize enough how much goals change games.
Oh, God.
Like, I think it changed how they were able to play. And my God, were they defensive.
Yeah.
So I think, look, that doesn't change O'Reilly's individual performance, which was decent, and you can still be wrong about that. But I just think it's really interesting, you know, what scoring enables you to do, what going ahead enables you to do. You know, I suppose a point away at a big rival is, you know, I think that if it were the other way around at City, I'd be gutted to have conceded the late equaliser. But in time, I'd be like, you know what, I'll take a point.
I just think at the end of the
Etihad.
day, it's about showing different sides, right? This is what, with my, you know, diamond analogy, what I'm trying to say is that title-winning teams must have different outfits. You know, they have the all guns blazing, steamroll you, they have the hang in there, they have the counter-attack, they have the low block. You know, you have to have all of these things. And what City showed to me today was something that I didn't necessarily think they were capable of, and O'Reilly was part of that. And as yet, you know, I could be wrong, Arsenal have not yet shown me a side to them that I haven't already seen.
Did you expect us to get an equaliser?
Yeah, I think at home I did. Okay, that was a very whistle-stop review of the Arsenal-Manchester City game and where that leaves the title race in the context of Liverpool. To round off, we're going to read a listener question from Nash VK on YouTube, who asks, Scarlet, what do you think of the criticism made towards Arteta that his tactics and approach is too strategic, monotonous and cautious and does not resemble the Arsenal of the past? I think even Peter Schmeichel said that we are ugly. Do you feel we have lost our identity?
Well, there's two things I would say to that. One is, what about the song 1-0 to the Arsenal? Like, does anyone remember a famous manager called George Graham? I think we won the league at Anfield, actually, with him presiding over a 2-0 victory. So I think Arsenal are famous for being good defensively. I mean, boring Arsenal. Tony Adams, Steve Bold. Like, I wasn't really involved with these players emotionally, but I think that they're, Keown, these are like huge bedrocks of Arsenal culture. And if you fast forward to the Invincibles, that was built on an incredibly strong defensive foundation. So it's clear, though, like, let's not mince words, that Arsenal don't play mercurial football at the moment. I think Arteta has studied in the academy of Pep Guardiola, which is pass to death, pass to control. And I think that, do you know what? I think it's all okay if you win. I think if we'd lost that game, I might be answering your question differently about caution. But the truth is, the margins are so small that now Arteta is the manager in the league with the best record against Guardiola, which has to tell you something about where this team is and where he's put this team. So I think that's the really interesting thing about Arsenal this season. It will be, if we win anything, then everything will be wrong about what everyone said. And if we don't win anything, then all the criticism will be right. If that makes sense. It just feels like it's... Just move it to pitch fast.
From the the same way the others were.
It all feels so on a knife edge. So in terms of whether we've lost our identity, I think you're going to take the piss out of me for this, but I think winning is Arsenal's identity. So if we win, then no. But, if this all leads to nothing, which I think you'd be pretty happy if it did, then perhaps, yes, we've sacrificed too much to gain nothing. My gut feeling has always been that I don't think that's the case. And I think this pragmatism, is in aid of something bigger, which I think we will see the fruit of. It's going to be a really competitive Premier League season, full stop. Lola, Nash also had a question for you. Lola, do you think there is an argument to be made that any opponents of the champions should consider being defensive or cautious in their approach, especially when they're coming to Anfield?
I think that's a really good question, Nash. I certainly think it should be a consideration. For example, I think had Everton showed up to Anfield and sat in two banks of four and defended the penalty box, I would have been like, fair play. This is your way home. This is your best chance to get points off us, because playing against a low block is hard. We saw that against Burnley last week.
We saw it today for Arsenal.
Mid-block, more of a mid-block. So I think there's definitely an argument, that there is I don't judge Burnley for being in a low block. I don't really judge Atletico because that's their way of playing. My reason for being critical of Arsenal is because of the weapons they have. It's because I believe them to have incredibly talented individuals assembled at great expense. And I just think that they can do better. I also think that when they went toe-to-toe with Man City, yes, City got in. And this was literally just in the last couple of minutes. There was a couple of moments where City were running into green grass and looked dangerous, but Arsenal looked the more dangerous. And I think the bottom line is, Nash, that I really believe, and I've said this to Scarlet, is that part of being successful in a title race is backing yourself and is being like, actually, you know what? We can afford to open up this game a bit here because we are better. So in answer to your question, I think there is an argument to be made that the majority of opponents of the champions should consider being defensive or cautious in their approach, especially when they're coming to Anfield. But there is a handful of teams, and I would include Arsenal, Manchester City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, who should be among other teams, but those teams in particular should be coming to Anfield and having a real go and backing themselves to be the better team.
I will just refer you back to your point about wearing many outfits in order to win a title. And I will also say that I think if City had won this game, it would have been a masterclass from Guardiola.
But Scarlett, that's not the point. The point is, do I think Arsenal should sit in a low block against Liverpool? No, they're better than that. The majority of teams could certainly consider it, but there are a handful of teams who I think should have a go. That's that. Thank you so much. That's been a brilliant episode. Whirlwind. We will be back throughout the week for more instant reaction for the League Cup. I'm really looking forward to it because we're going to finally get a glimpse of Clark Kent, aka Superman, aka Giovanni Leone in defence. I'm so curious about what he is. He's probably going to end up making howlers now. I'm excited about seeing Mamadashvili in goal. I'm excited about Isak getting a few more minutes, and Rio Ngamoa. I'm just excited full stop about him. Scarlett, is there anything in particular exciting you about the League Cup?
Well, seeing whether that scores or not.
I would suggest silverware is what you should be excited about. But anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you very much, Nash, for the question. And thank you very much to all of the lovely people who have subscribed on YouTube in the last week. Again, we really appreciate it. If you like what we do on YouTube, please do know that full video episodes are on the way. They're on the way. We are investing in the equipment and getting trained in how to use it. So you will have full video episodes very, very soon. If you like what we do on YouTube, we are also on Apple and Spotify, so please also do give us a follow on there. We really, really, really appreciate the support. Keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming, and thank you so much for listening.